PR Connections Radio presents.
I guess you can be very successful without one, and probably some people do. But I would not have accomplished anywhere near what I have accomplished without a mentor. I have had a number of mentors, and my whole life has changed dramatically. I went from going nowhere to having a business that operates all over the world. If you want to win in a big way, you want to get a mentor. It's almost like getting a direct pipeline from their mind to your mind, where you're gaining all their wisdom, all their experience, and all the studying that they've done over a number of years. And like that, you get it all in a short period of time. Are mentors important? Well, I'm going to tell you, mentors literally changed the course of my life. Let's take a look at what thinking into results is and what it could do for you, how it came about. You see, my life had changed dramatically. I went from earning nothing to earning over $1 million a year. And I was sitting one day and I was thinking, how did all this happen? Do you know, I was reading Think and Grow Rich. I was studying Earl Nightingale's material. But a lot of people have read those books and studied Earl's material. And they weren't accomplishing what I was accomplishing. So I had to ask myself, what am I doing so different? You see, I had been raised to believe if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. I was earning over $1 million a year, and I didn't think I was that bright. I was also raised to believe if you don't go to school, you can't win. Well, I hadn't gone to school. I went to high school for about 2 months. I didn't have a good job. I owned the entire company. If you want to be happy, healthy, and prosperous, it's all here. Thinking into results is going to show you how to get it. If what I've said really triggered something in your mind and you're thinking maybe, contact the certified PGI consultant. Hit the button, leave the information. Do yourself a favor. Sit down and talk to them about what this program can do for you. This very well could be the decision that will change the rest of your life.
Thank you, Bob Proctor. I'm Sid Maestre. I'm a certified consultant with Thinking in Results and Proctor Gallagher. And Thinking in Results. Change your thinking, change your results. Very easy to say, not easy to do. And that's what our program is about, is how to teach you how to change your thinking to change your results. And today we're looking at the ABC goals. But before we start on the goals, I want to read a couple things from our program. Before you begin looking at the ABC goal setting, take a close look at your belief system or the beliefs of your group. It appears there are guards that have been commissioned by a higher authority to arrest any forward progress in a person's life beyond the person's level of belief. These guards take their marching orders from the belief system itself, which is governed by natural laws of the universe. There is no growth beyond the belief that are held. If a person attempts to accomplish something beyond their level of belief, the mind will quickly and automatically create ideas or reasons justifying why it can't be done. And those ideas will continue to flow until the project is abandoned. On the other hand, when a person or group believes something can be done, the mind will automatically begin creating ideas that will pave the path to accomplishment. You can't achieve beyond how you see yourself. I have a little 3-step comments about the belief. You need belief in what you want. You need to know you can do it or get it. And 3, you reach that point where you expect it to happen. Belief, knowing, and expecting. I'm going to read a little thing called commitment before we get started here. I put this in the first person. Until I am committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there's one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. And the moment I definitely commit myself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help me that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in my favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which I never would come my way. Whatever I can do or dream I can, I begin it. My boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And that's from W.H. Murray, Scottish Himalayan Expedition, which was in the 1890s. So it still is important. Today, I'd like to introduce my guest, one of my students and a close friend, John Gage. John Gage, welcome, my trained voice actor.
Well,
John Gage, how are you today?
I'm doing okay. I mean, I've had better days, but I've also had worse. So, you just kind of have to take it as it comes.
Well, tell me, how do you see the ABC goals that we're talking about?
Well, let's see here. So an A goal is a goal that you can do, that you do all the time. Like, I'm going to make my bed. That's an A goal. I mean, it's essentially that simple. A B goal is something that you really, truly believe you can do before you set the goal, not after you set the goal, because you were talking about belief earlier. So I want to make that very clear. It's something that you can do before setting your goal, like buying a car. I mean, it's not super easy, or buying a home. It's not something that's super easy, but if you do all the right things and you know pretty much what those things are you need to do, you will obtain that goal. I'm talking, when I say home, I'm talking just a normal, single family home. I'm not talking a million. Which a seagull, not a seagull, a E goal is something that you believe is a pipe dream, for example, is just something that, well, I can dream about it, but I'm never going to achieve it. And that's a seagull. And that is the goal you really need to achieve. That's the goal you need to seek, because you need to prove to yourself that you can do it. You have to have that belief. You need to learn how to believe in yourself sometime. Would that be correct? Assuming?
Yes, John. You made me think about seagulls when I first started studying this, and I would look at a seagull as one that you've had for quite a while. It could be 10, 15, 20 years.
True.
And when that idea came to you and you shared it with your family and friends, and you got so much support, it reached the point where you stopped talking about it and eventually stopped thinking about it.
I think that's called imagination.
Yes. So that's happening, and what you'll learn with the Thinking Results program, that when you identify a goal, and as we were talking in what happens when you have a commitment and you believe it, things start happening, and you'll attract people to help you, a plan, and your confidence, the belief will show up because you've written it down. What else happens after you write it down, John?
Well, that's funny. You talk about belief and knowing your goals, and well, I knew my goals. This was one of the things I was resistant to. Knowing what I wanted and writing down what I wanted, and not just writing it down in detail, not just You know, I mean, it's like J.R.R. Tolkien. He's one of these writers that when he would write about the flower on the hill, he would talk about the flower that's on the hill that's a mile away that has a green stem that is 6 inches long, and you know, he would get into intimate detail about it. And when you read it, you'd go, "Oh wow, I can see that flower." So, knowing what you want and knowing what your goals are, but not writing them down is literally the difference between knowing what you want, knowing it, and visualizing it. Because we do see in pictures, having the ability to visualize it and picture it as if it's there now and being grateful that you have it, even though you don't, being grateful that you have it as if you've got it right at this moment is the probably the key to just about everything. I mean, we talk about Think and Grow Rich. I mean, Bob talked about that just, you know, in the introduction. You know, he talked about, you know, what we teach people about success. And he says, I wasn't educated, I wasn't this, and I was reading the same material that these other people were doing, but it was working for me, but not for them. And this thought come into my head, it's like, well, you obsessed over it, though. It was your life. You thought about it every day. Would that be a correct assumption on my part?
John, if I can interrupt for a moment, you're a little muffled.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's normal, John.
Okay.
I like to jump in here for a second because I hadn't quite. When you said the flower on the hill,
right,
yeah, and you can see it in your mind's eye. But if it happens to be a flower that you've never seen before, like a bird of paradise, if someone talks about, have you seen a bird of paradise? If you haven't seen one, you have no idea what it looks like.
right.
And that's the same thing with the sea goal. You've got this big goal. It's kind of fuzzy what it's going to look like. And you've got to write it down. When you write it down, we teach you, write it down. And you're going to repeat your goal to yourself in front of your mirror, morning and night, twice a day. And you do it with emotion. Nothing happens without emotion. We talk about desire. Desire doesn't help it. You need burning desire. And burning desire is an emotion that can be created through the repetition of repeating your goal and developing your plan. And the plans change, but the goal stays the same.
Exactly. Well, that's go ahead.
So tell me about your journey, because you're like a total new man since when I first met you. You're wandering in the desert, and
well, yeah. Well, you know, it's kind of like I'm kind of like one of those sales programs. I've been a salesman for a long time, so they'll take you to these seminars, and you'll learn the greatest technique for doing this sale, and it'll be an awesome technique, and they'll teach you technique, and it works. But the problem is they don't teach you how to make that technique a part of who you are. They teach you the technique, but they don't teach you how to retain it. They don't teach you how to change your habits so that technique is part of you. And that was what I had to learn. I had to learn how to make goal setting a part of who I am, not just a part of the process. Because just being part of the process, unless that process has a specific purpose, like changing your thought process, I know that a lot of processes there. So I hope we don't have to process that out. That was a bad pun. But they teach you these techniques that are wonderful, that work really well. But because they're not something that you're used to, that you know how to do, you're resistant to it because you revert back to your old ways because you haven't been taught how to make this work. And that's what we teach.
John, your voice was also
I wonder what's going on with that.
right now. Right now, you're fine.
I don't have a problem with my voice today, so sorry about that.
Well, I won't interrupt you again, but you gave me a thought that an expression that we use a lot. If you want something you've never had before, you're going to have to do something you've never done before. Which also reminds me of the another expression I use, that whatever your task is, particularly if it's new and it doesn't work out, I see that that's the best part when it didn't work out, because you get to look at it from another angle, another perspective, and try another way. And we talk about the going after that big goal, the journey, and it's who you become on the journey and the growth that you have. And you only grow when you're doing new things.
Well, and that's the case with anything in life. I mean, bad things have to happen to you for you to learn from. And it did not in every case, but my point being is we have to take our situation and turn that situation into a learning experience that's going to be permanent. And one of the ways you do that, especially with goals and learning how to appreciate them as if you have them now, even though you don't, is writing them down, repeating them to yourself. And eventually you start thinking about them all the time. Even if they're not at the conscious level, you're still thinking about them. Like, I have my goals in front of me all the time. I may not consciously see them, but my subconscious sees them and reads them immediately and understands that this is what it is. So that was probably one of my hardest lessons to learn, was how to visualize what I wanted and then learn to start believing that I have it. And sometimes that you have to become obsessed with it to an extent. You have to take what you want, write it down, and how bad do you want it? How bad do you want this? Why do you want it? Write it down, and write it down in detail. Like, my voice acting career, I have, I'm making $1 million net every year, net, not pre-tax, post-tax. My talents are used in commercials, children's cartoons, movies, audiobooks, corporate training videos. These are all things that are very specific. And that's something that we're resistant to learn to do, because it's kind of taught out of us in school.
You made me think of something else. Bob's the introduction video that we have, Bob's talking about mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were talking earlier that if you're going after something you haven't done before, you need to find somebody that's doing it. And
yes,
to get a mentor who's done it, not someone who's teaching it, but someone who's done it. And there's something about humans. We like to help people.
We do.
It's I've never said no to anybody that wanted some help on something that they were asking me, because they respected my opinion or my experience, and I'm welcome. I'd love to share.
Absolutely.
The other thing, I left it for a moment because I should have had this on my desk, but this is a little book called Think and Grow Rich, published in 1937. Yes. Over 100 million copies have been sold around the world. And I want to say 99% of the successful people that found companies, or people that are at the top of their game in their field, have read this little book. And you mentioned earlier when we were talking that the common denominator, and this book came about from Napoleon Hill being offered the opportunity to interview up to 500 successful people. This is around 1908. 500 of the successful people in all fields to discover what the principles of success. And there's 13 here, and no one has 13, but they all have 3 or 4 or 5 of these. But there's one common denominator that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
They think about their goal all day long. So I've known that for a very long time, but only our conversation earlier today, because I was always perplexed by that. Well, how can they be focused on something they're doing and thinking about the big picture? Well, when their conscious mind is not thinking about the goal per se, they're doing something. The subconscious mind is thinking about it. Subconscious mind is connected to our higher power, who, I like to say, whatever you want, whatever you sincerely want, the universe will conspire to help you get it.
Absolutely.
And now we're dealing with faith and belief. But I'll throw the ball back to you, John, and some other ideas that you have or experience working with this teaching.
Well, I can tell you that my life wouldn't be as happy as it is if it wasn't for this teaching. And honestly, that's hard to put a value on, because happiness is something that we all want and we all seek, or should anyway, because I do like having my peace of mind. I didn't have that before. I know that if I set a goal, I can obtain it. I just have to go through the process. You're going to have the terror barrier. You have to come up with the goal. You know, all the stuff we've taught in the past. But I think the biggest thing is being able to visualize that goal, set a picture, make a picture of it in my mind, and then write that picture down, and then rehash that picture over and over again. And like, I'm going to use sales techniques like I used before, because I've been to many sales seminars, learned a lot of really, really good techniques that I just failed to continue to use because I wasn't taught how to change my thinking permanently into that idea. If that makes any sense at all, because you get this idea, if you do this specific technique, and I'm not going to mention anything specific, but if you do this specific technique, your ABC widgets are going to sell like hotcakes. Well, okay, great. I do that technique, but I'm not committed to that technique. I don't truly believe in that technique yet, because, well, we'll see how it does. We'll do a test run. Because everything else I've done has failed. Well, you mentioned earlier speaking that the only time we fail is when we stop doing this. And the only time you're not going to hit your goal is if you quit. And that's what they don't teach you in these sales seminars, is how to not quit. They don't emphasize that. They say, if you do this, it'll work. It'll work. And I think it's part of the reason is because they don't understand why it works and how to express that to somebody else, how to put it into a picture. That's why the Lord of the Rings, speaking of J.R.R. Tolkien, it's part of the reason those books are so famous and so well loved, is he put things in he created languages, he created creatures, he created all kinds of things, but he put them in such vivid language that we were able to picture it in our heads. And when they put it, it was so vivid that when they finally were able to put it into a movie, everybody went, "That's what I saw when I read the book." That's what this does. That's probably the best assessment I can give you.
That is a great example. I hadn't thought of that, but I did see the movies. I have to confess, I did not. I have not read the books.
I have. I've read the books. I have all the movies. I've read all the books. J.R.R. Tolkien is one of my favorite authors, but the movies, the actors, when you see the interviews of the actors, they say, "Oh, remember in the book, Frodo did this, or Samwise did this, or Merry or Pippin did this." They intentionally did what the book said, and they rarely changed the script from what was said in the book. There was a couple of changes, but I could sit here and mention them, but that's because I'm a fan and I read them. But there was minimal change because Peter Jackson wanted everybody to see what Tolkien was seeing. It's really hard when you put stuff in words and you get exact with what you want to not see what you are seeking. That C goal. And eventually it'll become an A goal.
I like that. I want to go back when you're talking about quitting,
Mhm.
and the definition of success. And this was John Wooden, UCLA basketball coach back in the 60s. I think they won eight championships in a row, basketball, NCAA. But his definition of success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal being the name of this particular lesson in Thinking in Results. As long as you haven't quit, you're successful.
Correct.
You might be just resting before you're moving forward.
You always change the plan, not the goal.
Yes. I'm looking at the time here. We have about 3 minutes or so. You don't have to leave yet, John, but I would like my producer to take off the Thinking in Results Certified Consultant and replace it with the website, Sid Maestre thinkinginresults.com. Monty's our producer, and thank you. Now I know he's watching us. So at this website, when you go there, they're doing some work on it. But at the top of the page, you'll see some tabs where you can learn about Bob and Sandy Gallagher that put this together, also about the program, and be able to reach out to me if you would like to talk about this. We can set up a time to talk, answer your questions, see if this program is a good fit for you in achieving the goals in life, particularly the ones that you've been thinking about, ones that you're stuck on, ones that you haven't started because there's certain fear. We can help you overcome that fear. So, John, thank you so much. I love your insights, your experience. You make this really, really easy.
I do want to mention on the website, it's going to say that the website's broken. It's going to give you like an error code. Just that one page is broken. Like Sid said, if you go to the tabs on top and click the tabs on top, you can the website actually is functioning. It just doesn't, the landing page doesn't look like it's functioning, and they haven't figured out what's wrong with it.
Thank you for clarifying that, John. I'm seeing that we've got less than 30 seconds here. We'll be back here next week.
Yes.
Hope you enjoyed this, found some value. And next week, we're going to talk about the knowing-doing gap, all the things that you know how to do that you're not doing. and we're here to help you.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.